Hey friends, welcome back to Confidence and Coffee, where we keep it real, raw, and a little bit caffeinated. I'm your host, Ashley Henriott, speaker, author, and your go-to hype girl for when life feels like a lot. Around here, we talk about things that keep you up at night. Self-doubt, fear, people-pleasing, faith, and finding your voice again, without the fluff. So grab your coffee, pull up a seat, and let's talk about stuff that actually matters. Welcome back to Confidence and Coffee. I am so excited and pumped up, even outside of frustrations and life and stress and whatever that may be, confusions, and even Mike's not working because that's a story in itself. But we are here. I'm excited for what God is going to be using my new friend, Kristen Strong. You guys, her wisdom and insight, even her comfort and understanding is phenomenal. I'm so inspired by her. Kristen is amazing, and we're going to be talking about her new book, Desperate Women Seeks Friendship. I'm so excited because in Desperate Women Seeks Friends, Kristen, you talk about it's about really talking about the connection, the rejection, and trying again for the friendships that you need. Kristen is a respected author. Her works include Girl Meets Change, Kristen, correct me, and
Correct.
Backroads for Belonging. Kristen has a meaningful online presence, and then she shares just insight and wisdom on faith, relationships. And today we're going to be talking about friendships. Kristen, welcome to Confidence and Coffee.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited about your book and just what you do. We just talked about that. I thought she only wrote 3 books. She's like, no, this is my 6th. I'm like, oh man, I only have 1 so far. We're talking about the second one. But this book, I feel like I told you before the episode, is so timing. But what inspired you to write this? What is the why behind this book, In Desperate Women Seeks Friends?
You bet. Yeah. Well, I guess I feel that overall, friendship has been a theme that's just come up in my life a lot. And I think that comes from, so growing up, I grew up in Osage County, Oklahoma. I'm an Oklahoma girl, born and bred. So I live in Colorado Springs now, but you hear maybe a little Okie twang. That's from Oklahoma. But I grew up on O'Neill Lane, that was my street name. And everybody on O'Neill Lane's last name was O'Neill, including mine. So lots of family, kind of small town. Other than a rough patch in middle school, I pretty much always had friends. They were just kind of organically there. Well, I go to college about 50 miles away to Oklahoma State. And there I meet and fall in love with one David Strong. And he was at that point in the process of becoming an officer in the Air Force. He was going through the ROTC program at college. Yeah. So he got, when he graduated, we decided to get married. So we got married. So I actually transferred colleges as a senior to one where his first duty station was, which was Dayton, Ohio. So anyway, I show up at this brand new college, and also at the same time, my husband leaves for training. So it was kind of the stark realization, wow, I went from kind of feeling like I knew everybody to knowing nobody. And I just sort of expected, okay, I was a music major. My music school, the music school I was now a part of, was pretty small. They'll just know I'm new and welcome me in. And that isn't exactly what happened. I kind of acted like I had no agency in it at all. It was just sort of the victim of my circumstances. And so it was really tough at that time, because looking back, what I know is I just didn't know how to make friends. I didn't have that skill set. But then, being an Air Force wife for almost 20 years, when my husband was active duty, I learned the skill set, kind of on a rinse and repeat pattern. So yeah, I think it's just been a present theme in my life overall.
First off, here's where your book related with me, because I'm in a season that I've learned that adjusting at our age is extremely difficult. Your book resonated with me because I moved to Virginia 5 years ago from the Outer Banks. You read my book, we moved all the time. But as an adult, after my Jesus relationship, God called us here, and understand I hated it before he asked me to move here. Like I was like, I'm not, you didn't, that wasn't for me, obviously, Lord. You're just testing me. But no, he really wanted me to move to Virginia. And can I be so honest with you? I've been here for 5 years and I'm still just really getting adjusted. And I go back and forth because I wonder, Kristen, like for me, is it the season of life that I'm in with social media? You're on social media, being an author, like being an influencer, like what I do, is it that is what brings the struggle and the hesitation for connection? Or is it the disappointment? Is it the age? Like, what would you say is the biggest issue that you talk about
Mhm.
in your book that connects you to why didn't you just fit in, right? Like you're from a small
Right.
town. Like I'm from Alabama. Like we love everybody. We wave to everybody. What do you think what is the issue there? Like the main pattern?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll speak for me personally and in general cultural trends. For me personally at that time, first of all, I was married. Not a lot of college kids are married necessarily, at least not the one I was in. I was going to. I also commuted to college, so I was always on the fringes of campus life. I talked with this accent in a place where people did not talk with my accent. I mean, I had one person told me straight up it made me sound dumb. So it was a lot of just differences there where I stuck out, and it wasn't, and it's not, and I eventually did kind of make some, I would say, more passive friendships, not real active friendships, but yeah, it was just that combined with me not knowing how to just put myself out there and extend the hand of friendship first. Hi, my name is Kristen. Like I just didn't even, it never occurred to me. So that was my personal situation. Culturally though, now, like there's a lot of things going on. Like parents today, we spend twice as much time with our children as generations past. So, if you think of time as like a pie, there's a thinner slice for friendships. We just back burner friendships. We just put it back there and we say, we'll get to it when we get to it. It's easier to think, my marriage takes work, my relationship with my kids takes work, or my relationship with my significant other takes work, extended family takes work. We don't really think of friendship in the same way, but it takes like work and intention as well. And I think the older you get, the more that becomes true. I do think social media is a part of it. As one who is on social
Yeah.
media, it can be easy. Like you kind of get your little breadcrumbs of connection, as you're moving along, and it's just enough to stave off the hunger for an hour or what have you. But it doesn't do what sitting down face to face with somebody does. It's like a meal, instead of just bread, eating by breadcrumbs. So a lot of that comes into play, as well as just, you and I both live in the West. We're very individualistic and we're getting more so that way. So that's just, those are just some cultural things that are going on right now.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and we talk about that a lot. We even make GIFs. And, those are like a cultural common theme that we do try to put order in everything, and friendships do take that back burner. I'm curious, there's a quote, I feel like you talked about something also in regard of like friendships and connections. And there's a quote in your book: simple principles and practices to help you stay grounded with a healthy mindset so you bring your best self to others
Mm-hmm.
and don't inadvertently sabotage. That's what got me. Don't inadvertently sabotage your efforts to make friends. Talk to me about that.
You bet. Well, that's just sort of one of those, it's a way of thinking about, do I need to evaluate any blind spots maybe I have that I'm bringing to my friendships that are hurting them and not helping them? And I think, by and large, this is not something to like really get like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible friend. Don't let it take you there. It's just, or, this is, if I do this, I have the potential to see myself as a terrible friend. Don't let it take you there. This is just something like you would do in any relationship. Like you don't want to bring your best self, or at least, the healthiest self that you can to those relationships. Things like watching expectations. And listen, I tell on myself in this book more than anybody else. I tell about hard things that have happened to me in the friendship lane, but I tell on myself as much as anyone because I really, I wasn't necessarily the mean girl ever. Not that I never did a mean thing to a friend. I'm quite sure I have, but, I didn't have a pattern of it. But I was the needy girl, 6 ways from Sunday. And both act out of insecurities and, can really have a hard time finding friends because you overwhelm them one way or the other. That was my story, is one of being the needy girl. And so therefore you would, when I finally made a friend after, somehow, the Lord bringing somebody into my life, I could overwhelm her with attention. I wouldn't necessarily, I'd be like, okay, check. I got my friend, I'm done. And so I would just overwhelm her with attention. And, I talk in this book, I read this wonderful book by Drew Hunter called Made for Friendship. And he talks about how friendships are we're like cars in a lane. And ideally, you and your friend are in the same lane. If you see her as a close friend, she sees you as a close friend. But when you start bringing expectations into the picture, you're going to move that friend into another lane, and you cannot force that person to be for you, what you think she ought to be. Number one. I mean, number two, I would also try to make my friends like little friend saviors instead of going to the Lord to fill that hole in me. I demanded that of people, and no person is set up to be able to do that and to live that way. So understandably, my friends would start looking for the exit because I would overwhelm them. So mitigating our expectations is just, something to be aware of, that we don't have unreasonable expectations we're bringing into a friendship. And also that we're respecting boundaries, if not refusing to give others the same courtesy we would want in our own lives regarding boundaries. So those are a couple of things that come to mind with that. And, that can also just play out like specifically, like, are you one to carry a suspicious demeanor and not give the benefit of the doubt? Or do you find yourself in conversations, are you talking more than you're listening? That can be real draining on the other person and not very fun.
Yeah, there's so much comes to mind. I'm trying to stay in order. You briefly talk about the church too.
Yeah.
Wanted I wanted to talk to you about personally, I find this is my personal experience, but I find it really hard to find friends more so in the church, in the Christian circles than in real life. Like I'm maybe that's a me thing, but I'm more safe and I've been a Christian for 15 years. I'm a Christian author. I'm a Christian content creator. I love Jesus. We all know, everyone knows I love
Mm-hmm.
the Lord, but I find myself more safe. I have my best friend who loves God. Like that's my person. But in regard of circles, I find myself more safe in hanging out to people that don't necessarily have a strong relationship or a belief in God because they're so real and I'm very authentic. I'm very real, even on social media than in Christian circles where it's like, it just seems I've always struggled a little bit that it just seems like it's just everything is so surface and I love accountability,
Mm.
don't get me wrong, and I love to be challenged. I'm ambitious, but at what point are we just real with ourselves in those Christian circles where we have such a strong foundation in God that we can just be human? It's like I find friendship to be even more difficult in the church. And you talk about that a little bit because for me, I always say this, Kristen. I say, the church taught us how to be spiritual, but they didn't teach us how to be human. And I wonder if that affects
Mm.
the friendships in church. And you talk about that in your book a little bit. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think churches can be real clicky, and again, everything is friendship is such a nuanced thing. When having a group of friends is not a negative thing. I like to think though it's more of a friend arc than a circle because then you're not closing it off so nobody else ever gets in,
Yeah.
but when we have this air of exclusiveness with it, then it becomes a clique, and that's not in God's design for his people. So yeah, that can be really painful when you encounter that. And I've encountered that before. We attended a church before that I think we were in the Sunday school group, I think probably 3 years before we felt like we actually belonged there. And, as a military family, we were about on our way out by the time that happened. So that is really, really difficult. And I think and what I think of myself, what I like to think about with all of that is, you can talk to church leadership about it. You can bring up the issue, but as generally we are ones who can only control ourselves. What I try to remember as one who has now lived in Colorado Springs for 15 years now, or almost 15 years, I am no longer the new person. I am the established person. And so I want to, so if any of those gals are listening right now who have, they're like, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in my community. I feel like, I wouldn't mind more friends, but I feel settled here. Like, let's just never have that attitude. Like, I've found my people. I've got friends, check, because I'm blessed here in Colorado Springs. I do have a good little group of friends, but I never think I'm done with friendship. It is a journey, it is not a destination. And so we need to keep, so it's one thing if somebody, is new, like it's a lot to put the onus on them to like ask 50 people, essentially, will you be my friend? Or are you available for coffee? Want to come over for dinner? I have a good friend that just moved to Colorado Springs. She asked 3 people for a coffee date and they all shot her down. Like all of them said no. And I'm like, listen, I get you may not be able to do it this week, but listen, you may be able to do it next month. You may be able to do it 3 months from now, maybe 6 months from now. Get a date on the calendar. Just meet with her one time down the road when it, when things lighten up for you. And again, there's seasons where you're extra busy, but in general, is there a pocket of time down the road? You never know. The Lord says in Isaiah 43, see, I am doing a new thing. So you never know when
Amen.
the Lord's doing a new thing and will bring you a really great friendships. That's what
Yeah.
I say to the church cliques, to the gals that are in there and established in a church. Keep your eyes open for the new people and welcome them. And I mean, if welcome them and their stories, whatever they may be.
I love, love, love that you're like, don't ever just be done with like making more friends. Like, I always like to say that I never I'm always growing my table. I'm always making my
Yes,
table longer.
love it.
Uh, And like my friends, I want friends that also are open to our tables being longer. And I don't want people that are, that like a kind of the attachment. Like I know there's like I'm attached to my best friend. Let me tell you, I have no problem calling her at 2 in the morning. But like for me, the struggle is like always in most settings feeling like I don't belong or I'll inconvenience them or what if they see the real me? And I write about that
Mm.
and I think there's a lot of projection, like even towards the other person as well in that regard. And you talk about this in your book, and I really, really, really want you to talk about it. It's really, really good. And you talk about how to be a good friend to yourself. You talk about
Mm.
being a good friend to yourself in your book. And there's a quote, and I wrote it down here. Each of us endures friendship struggles. Y'all hear me out. Like, this is so good. I want a copy of her. I'm going to talk her into giving me a copy. Each of us endures friendship struggles. Think about what it would mean to be a victor through your friendship difficulties rather than a victim of them.
Mm.
Wait, but there's more. There's more. There's more. Whew. I have goosebumps. Rejection doesn't have to be the end of your story. Be a good friend to yourself by pushing past the hard and extending an invite to just one person in your circumference. You never know where one invitation could lead. Now, I'm going to give you the floor because you're going to talk about this. But do you know when I first read that quote, I thought it was to one person in your circumstance, and I had to go back and it was yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I
Yeah.
love.
And I just was like, I read back it was circumference, but I'm like, man, an invite to just one person in your circumstances. And is it because of us not being good friends to ourselves or some self-reflection issues that we have a hard time doing that? Do you want to talk about
Mm.
that? I just loaded
Yeah.
so much on you, but it's so good. Your book is so good and it's so easy to read. Your
Oh,
book, I find it
thank
was a
you.
very easy read. Does that make sense? Like it wasn't in depth, but it was so knowledgeable that I could like chew on and swallow
Oh,
the
good.
advice and the connections and the relatability that you were giving me. And so I love those are my favorite books. Those are
Oh,
like my very, very favorite. Or just like I love a little bit of deep, but like just meeting me in that place and talking to me like a person. Okay, I'm done
uh,
talking. Okay.
oh, Ashley, that's so kind. Thank you for that. Well, I think, I guess what comes to mind with what kind of encapsulates what you're talking about there is a story in my chapter. There's a chapter all about my daughter's high school versus college experience in making friends. And that I was, of course, able to share that with her permission. But my daughter is 21. Actually, she'll be 22 on Saturday. But anyway, So in high school, she just had the hardest time making friends. Like she had a group of friends that came up from middle school, but they would just be really hot and cold. And so, they'd be all on fire to hang out, and then they would just give her the cold shoulder. So she'd turn to, put her attention elsewhere, and then they'd accuse her of acting like she was better than they were. And also then, there would be friends who on Monday were like, "Oh yeah, Faith, let's get together." That's my daughter's name is Faith. "Let's get together on Friday, no problem." But then Friday morning, or Friday evening right before, they would cancel. It was just like it seemed like no sense of, I guess, loyalty or just basic kindness, social graces seemed to be missing. And so it was interesting though, because she had a couple of friends on her, she's a tennis player, so she had a couple of friends on tennis teams. So it's not like she didn't have friends, but she just in high school she struck out. But then she went to college and she goes to Texas A&M. She's a junior, and boy, she made friends left, right, and center. And the interesting thing we discovered, a couple of things really. First of all, is she kept striking out in high school, and but she never gave up like trying. And that was what she gave up on certain people. It was kind of one of those, once people show you who they are, believe them and pivot your attention elsewhere. So so
Preach.
yes, she would pivot her attention elsewhere, and kind of have a little better luck, but just never felt like she had her people. But in college, that all changed. And so what we did was we watched her use the skills she really honed in high school, even though it looked like nothing was happening. Nothing is happening. Why am I even wasting my effort? But the effort paid off in college, and because she didn't just sit in her dorm room, she went out and met people in youth group, in the lunchroom, in her clubs, in her classes. At church, she met people. And so I think there's such value in just simply having that perseverance and not giving up. We also one time over after Faith's first semester, so her freshman year, she finishes first semester, she comes home for Christmas. And we are talking about just kind of how much better this first semester of college has been compared to, I mean, I just told her, I'm like, your high school years were a bunch of crap, but you are reaping the rewards of a harvest well earned. And my husband says harvests do better with a lot of fertilizer, and you've stored up some fertilizer that you're putting to good use. And so that is the blessing in God's economy, who redeems everything. The fertilizer seasons you go through are not for nothing. The friendship you thought, I just heard from a woman this morning, she was friends with a woman for 30 years who just changed her mind about her seemingly overnight, and it doesn't seem to be enlightening her on, what the problem was.
Ghosting. We call that ghosting.
Yes, ghosting for sure. But like, I mean, ghosting over decades of a friend, after decades of a friendship, wow, that's painful. And that is just the glimmer of hope. And I don't think it's toxic positivity to say so, that in God's economy, even that will not be wasted. I mean, it's okay to grieve what's lost. Absolutely. You need to grieve what's lost. But in God's economy, the fertilizer will get put to good use.
Yeah, chapter 3 that's what that's about. That was really good. And you talk about, your daughter like putting herself out there. I learned my kids struggle also right now in middle school and high school to like make strong connections, but they make great connections in youth. And so it's really about I find with my kids, people that like have the same morals as you, like
Right.
have the same beliefs, like want to do right, like maybe you're on the same sports. Like I think that we can take our seasons, like you were talking about, and we can find people in those seasons who are in similar positions as us. And I think that we should
Right.
really be looking in that and not try to like put on a vision board what kind of friend we think we need, but what kind of friend will meet us where we are. And duo, right? Not be that victim you talk about in your book. Like, don't be the victim in the
Yes.
friendship. And then you have a chapter where, and I want to connect that where you talk about being awkward. Like
Yeah.
I always call it get comfortable being uncomfortable, but you call it get cozy and comfortable with awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It
love
comes
that.
with it. It just comes with
It
it.
comes with it. And you quote Holly Gerf and
Yes.
you say awkward is the price of admission for authentic connection. And you
Yes.
talk about the church in here, so talk to me about that.
You bet. Well, I give a story of myself in church when my husband and I don't know if that's what you were referring to
Yeah, you
or
guys
something
just
else, but
moved to Colorado Springs,
yes, we
and,
had, and we were,
okay.
yes, exactly. And so we were in a community group, and I saw this gal across, and it was a large group. I mean, it was probably like 100 people. And I saw this girl across the room, and I'm like, I know her. And I asked my husband, does she look familiar to you? And my husband's like, no, she didn't look familiar to me. And so it was like the next 6 weeks or so, a couple of months, I kept seeing her, and we just never crossed paths. We just were never, I would chat with other people, but just never with her. And for 6 weeks, I kept going, I know her from somewhere, but I couldn't place it. So anyway, fast forward that 6 weeks, 2 months, whatever it was. And we had signed up to be in a small group. And so at the end of this community group, we were put at tables according to our small groups so we could kind of just meet and get to, chat with each other a little bit. Well, they ended up being in our small group. And so as the leader, his name was Fred, he was having us go around the room and introduce ourselves. She introduced herself as May Powell, and I slammed the table so hard. It was like one of those, I wasn't even thinking. It was like I just acted. And like everybody, at the table jumped. Everybody in the room, came down to a hush as their heads swung in my direction. Anyway, I was like, "You're a May Powell. We met you 15 years ago at Emily Hudgens' birthday party." And anyway, she was, almost like, didn't want to admit to knowing me because I came across real awkward there. It was, yeah, it was profoundly awkward. Like I couldn't, why couldn't I just be a normal human who, was like, afterwards, hey, my name's Kristen Strong. We met, a little while ago. I didn't do it that way though. But you know what? She's like one of my best friends now today. And so I think there's something to be said for the most awkward, and more awkward is, the more awesome the friendship could be.
I'm as awkward as it gets. But here, let me say this, like in that quote, y'all, this book is so timely, Kristen, for me.
Oh, thank you.
Awkward connects us to our authenticity.
Mm,
They're so
yeah.
interconnected in that. And I wish
Uh-huh.
that people wouldn't shame what they call, like, I'm sorry, this is awkward. Don't shame that. You're literally about to show somebody the authentic beauty of who you are, and that's a treasure. Thank you. Coming from you, that's an honor. I received that. Kristen, you talk about desperation
Yeah.
in that same chapter, I believe, about the awkward, and you talk about desperate women seeking friends. Do you want to kind of
Mm-hmm.
break that down for us, like what you would define as
Yeah.
desperate, and kind of make that connection in regard to
Yeah.
friendship?
Sure thing. Yeah. Well,
And wait, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you say this in that chapter as well, and you say it a
okay.
lot, and I want you to go into that too. You say this a lot about holding a sign in the front yard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is how the title of the book came about. Desperate Woman Seeks Friends. It was because when we moved to Dayton, Ohio, we were actually there the second time, but it was very different from the first time. A lot of my friends just weren't there anymore. I felt like I couldn't pay a woman to be my friend. I was doing so at this point. When we moved to Dayton the second time, I knew how to make friends. And I knew how to be a good friend. I had matured, I'd gotten wiser. I wasn't the needy friend anymore. I was just, I knew, like, I had no problem. Hi, my name's Kristen Strong. What are you doing for Thanksgiving? Like, I knew how to, and the military community is kind of that way anyway, because, we just kind of fast forward the small talk because we know we don't have much time but with folks, but so I knew how to do all the right things, quote unquote, and I was still coming up empty. What had worked before was no longer working. And it felt like everybody already had their people in this community where we were, or, they would find out I was military and they'd be like, oh, you're out soon. We're not interested, or, I mean, they wouldn't say that, but that was kind of, that was the vibe. So I told my husband one night I was going to make a sign. We had poster board, and I was going to put on a desperate woman seeks friends. And I was just going to, because this was 2005 before social media, I was just going to hold it in the yard and see. We had a corner lot. So I thought maybe somebody will come by. It is
My
who's
God, I
interested.
would have knocked on your door so fast. I'd be like,
So
hey, me too.
I don't know. Listen, sometimes the more direct route yields the fruit.
Preach.
So now I did not do it, but I'm telling you, in all honesty, I was this close, just this close. But what happened shortly after that time, and this was like a year or so after moving there, I met a woman at the park. We kept showing up with our young daughters at the same time. Well, I had all three of my kids, but she just had daughters. But we kept showing up at the same park at the same time. We became friends, and we're still friends today, even though we haven't lived in the same town since 2007. So all that to say is, yeah, desperate is something. I think sometimes we can feel embarrassed to feel desperate for friends. I think we can feel kind of like if we had if we actually put that out there, people are going to think we're weird or kind of pity us or anything. I don't think desperation is bad. I think what you do out of the desperation could be a negative. If you are like early 20s something Kristen and overwhelming people with expectations and just you know
Mm.
if they say they can't get together on a Friday, you throw three different dates, within the next week that you would like to get together with them, that's using your desperation in a non-healthy way. But if you use it in a healthy way, it does is propel you to keep trying again until you find the friends you need. You never know when the Lord is orchestrating a turnaround. Scripture is full of times where he in his divine timing could change the situation when things looked bleak pretty quickly. And that's how even though it took me over a year to find Sherry, my friend that I met at the park, she showed up and it was like, oh my gosh, and we got along like a house of fire, as people say. So you never know when a turnaround is coming, but it's okay to use your desperation in a way that helps you move forward. And so I guess I don't have the negative connotation with it that maybe I even used to have.
Yeah. I I agree with you. I always said this too. I like you talk about in your book about that friendship feel is as an adult trying to find friends as an adult is like dating.
Yeah.
And when you're first dating, it can be awkward.
Yeah.
Um, and then for me, I always tell my friends, like, friendship is like also, it's to keep the friendship, it's like marriage. You guys have to work at it. Like, it's not always going to feel natural to kind of get together, and life's going to be crappy or busy. Circumstances are going to happen. But to keep that friendship alive, you gotta like work. Like, you gotta keep it going because life does happen, and we're not in high school anymore. And so,
Right.
um, man, there's so many questions I could ask you. But the one I want to connect in that is, do you agree that we live in a culture where people don't find friendship necessary anymore? And you talked about that a little bit with social media, but just like, if I'm honest, like after I got hurt in church, I had to go on my own faith journey because of church trauma and leadership abuse.
Mm,
At
mm.
that point, I just really learned to be okay by myself. But understand, I know I really wasn't okay. Does
Sure.
that make sense?
Sure.
And I feel like I talk to many women that are like, nah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I would challenge you to say you're probably good now, but will you be good later? Because,
Yeah.
I'm 50 and you don't get to 50. Some of us don't get to 20, 30, 40, but you definitely don't get to 50 without having some stuff thrown at you in your life.
Yeah.
And if I'm not sure I would have made it. We had a difficult last kind of a period between 2020 and probably last year before. It was really, really difficult. And I don't know if I would have made it through without my friends. And I know, like, truly all we need is the Lord. I understand that, we always have him. We're never alone in our loneliness. Jesus always is with us, every single
Yeah.
one of us.
Amen.
But he also works through people. And I think, even, in scripture, Moses had Aaron and Hur to lift up his arms when he got tired. And there will come a time when each and every one of us needs somebody to lift our arms when we're tired, when we need somebody to pray because we are out of words, pray on our behalf. So, and pray like my friends pray for my kids like they're their own. You cannot put a price tag on that. They help fill in the gaps. And God, just like Max Lucado says, the Lord speaks through the verse, of course, and the voice. And they have been the voice of Jesus to me many a time. So, that is just my message is I know women can be so tricky. Women have wounded me tremendously. Understand that. That is not something I minimize. Your rejection is not something I just gloss over like, well, that's a part of life. It is a part of life. We do all go through it, but it just is it just sucks. So it's okay to say that, but we also want to at the same time know that we do still need friends. And if Jesus walked this earth with friends, which he most assuredly did, and he was a perfect person, we need to do so as well. And it's the Lord's will for us to as well. So I just encourage that gal to, or that guy for that matter, to keep on keeping on in finding the friends you need.
And she talks about you being a gal in her book a lot.
Yeah.
That's a Southern in her. You talk about in your book, I love what you're saying here because you talk about Friendship Town and that you talk about how friendships require active participation and perseverance. But then the one thing that really stuck with me is that about self-reflection. You also talk about self-reflection in your friendships as a positive direction to travel rather than
Uh-huh.
squatting at the false promises of playing the victim. And I have a
Yes.
vision of this, but I have to read this. I'm going to quote you here because I think it's really funny,
Okay.
but also get into those questions as well.
Sure.
But you talk about, let me pull it up. Overall, I'm quite content today with the state of my friendships. Of course, the moment I say that, I feel like the devil may say, hold my beer. And yet, I like to consider these questions and those from earlier. She has questions in the chapters in my personal journey or prayer time. And you would talk about a few of the questions, and then you talk about a lot of them. But the ones that stuck out to me was that really convicted me
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
was when was the last time I extended an invitation to a friend or potential friend? Could I be going through this less than ideal friendship season because the Lord wants my attention elsewhere and has
Uh-huh.
therefore removed distraction? That's something you have to break down for us. And then the one of the out of all of them, these are the top three. Am I settling for ease over effort?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a lot of, in my own story too. I used to just be real good at playing the victim and I didn't understand that I was, but now I can see that is for what it is, which is basically like instead of putting in the work to get the results I want, I just was like, well, I'm set up for failure. It's harder to make friends in Ohio because the people aren't as friendly as they are in Oklahoma. I mean, that was my experience. I know there's a lot of friendly Ohioans. No shade to the Ohio people, but at my school, the school I transferred to was like kind of like one of my the gals that was a music major with me, her neighbor was David Letterman. So who was like a comedian, like a Jimmy Fallon, essentially. He had a late night show. They were a wealthy group and I was not. So I was a poor, just married student. We had no money. Anyway, all that to say is, I just gave up excuses after excuses as to why I couldn't make friends instead of going, you know what? It's true. I'm in a harder spot than I was a month ago or 3 months ago, but that just means like I got to kick in that much more work to get the results I want. So that was that there. But yeah, talking about the questions, the ease over effort, that's where that comes into play. I think there was a part of me that was just a little bit lazy with it, that I didn't want to put in the effort. When we settled here in Colorado Springs, my husband got a teaching assignment at the Air Force Academy. So that's what brought us here. But by that point in our military life, we'd had several friends circle around to the same spot. And so I was like, look, I'm moving in with friends. I am not having to start community over from the ground up like I have just done a half a dozen times. So I am happy to, I had those friends. Excellent. So I did zero work to kind of keep my heart open to new people, but also to put in work to make new friends. Now, again, I get, I am not one that we don't need 100 friends. We really don't even need 10 friends. We really just need 2, 3, 4, like good friends. But at the same time, if that friendships that you have, what if what they change, which is what happened to me. A couple of them went off to work, two of them moved away, another one moved way up north of town, and I lived down south, or I did at the time live down south. So, then life happened, and I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm having to completely reinvent my community. Whereas if I had just kept my eyes and my heart open a little bit along the way, just a little bit, see what the Lord might have done, I wouldn't have found myself friendless, even though I'd lived in the same place, for a while. But again, like I said before, you can do all the right things and still have a hard time making friends. And so for every rule, 10 rules for making friends, I can throw 10 exceptions at you. But there are some general things that are just, true, generally no matter what. But yeah, easy over effort was basically, what I had slipped back into doing without realizing it.
Yeah, and I love the second one I talked about because when I read, could I be going through this less than ideal
Oh,
friendship season because the
yes.
Lord wants my attention elsewhere, has therefore removed. I immediately thought of boundaries, and I immediately thought of like that it has a deeper meaning when I read that was more so like, am I trying to surround myself with people that I want their approval? And I'm trying to prove
Right.
myself, and it's exhausting, and they aren't really for me. They're not really interested in knowing me, seeing me, understanding me. And is this an exhausting friendship? And is it holding me back from my true confidence, right? Like who I really
Right.
am and embracing who I am, because friendships can do that. Like, and then the honest, like friendships where it's like, God has these people for you because you said, and we outgrow people. Like, let's
Right.
just be real, and God will
Yes.
bring people into your life for a season. And
Hmm.
I think that we need to be careful in friendships as well, not to like, and I think that goes with that victim mentality. Like, they're not ours. Like, we don't get to kind of like attach ourselves to them and like become a little bit codependent. And I think that
Right.
that connects with the victim mentality that you bring up.
Yes.
And in that, for me, because I struggled with that many years ago, I also found myself being the needy one who always felt like I had to lower myself. I had to dim my light, and I kind of had to be like, yeah, I need you, and I need your advice, and you're just, and I could never really I never felt comfortable to show my full potential of who I really am and speak in authority of what I know and like really embrace all of me for the sake that I might make them uncomfortable or lose them because the dynamic of the victimization and the attachment around what the identity of that friendship is. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
that's what that spoke to me, where it's like you put it in simple terms, like, are you? Like I
Yeah.
just thought that was good.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah. I mean, listen, I believe we're sometimes we are kind of referencing that quote you mentioned. We are, I think, called to be in a lonelier season because the Lord maybe wants to handle something that, but having said that, it should be just for a season, not forever and ever. Amen. Because we are to be lonely, I mean, it says from the get go in Genesis, it is not good for man to be alone. In fact, that's the first thing the Lord says is not good. He's creating, it is good, is it good, it is good, it is good, it is good. And then he gets to Adam all by himself and he's like, it is not good. So it is not good for any of us to be alone. But at the same time, loneliness can happen for a season and a half. Sometimes the Lord will, like you mentioned, winnow down our distractions so he widens our perspective on something that needs handling. And in my life, that's been on, I needed to take care of something in my marriage. I needed to, deal with some familial issues, so because I can be quick to, when something happens, I'm calling my friend, what should I do? And that is not bad, but I want to first go to the Lord and then go to
Yeah.
the friend, and so sometimes loneliness does have that purpose, but yeah, I mean there, it's just so difficult when you are in that position, or yeah, and I used to be the same friend as you, Ashley, where I could be a codependent and yeah, kind of out of that victimization mentality, just try to get all my needs met with this one human person. And, that they're just not gonna, no human is set up to be able to do that.
No, and those lonely seasons I look at is like, when people come to me and they're like, I'm lonely, and I'm like, are you lonely or is God protecting you at the moment so he can just like prepare you? Is this a protection preparation season for when he
Right.
does put people in your life and you're ready to navigate that kind of authentic, deep, long-lasting
Yeah.
friendships rather
Yeah.
than
And
these
you brought
surface ones.
Yes, and you brought up a very good point because I do think sometimes we are trying to be friends in more places and in more groups than any human was ever designed to be able to be friends with. And I think sometimes in that, we kind of discount places we do already have friendships, places we really already do belong, because we're kind of seeing that table over there and we really want the invite. And at the end of the day, if we don't get it, then it just wasn't in the Lord's best interest for us. So I get wanting that, but that's where you just have to trust the Lord's view from above, and he knows what we need and what we don't need. And like you said, there may be some protection in that loneliness you're feeling, like legitimate loneliness you're feeling. But then also that would be my question too, is like, are you trying to maybe just ask yourself, am I trying to belong in more places than I am, than any human could ever belong?
So good. And you need boundaries.
Yeah.
What do you think of the saying? Because this honestly helped me really like just be okay with me. And if they're not okay with me, I'm okay with that. Right?
Right.
So I have this saying, and I know it's like, I think there's a healthy part of this mentality. But for me, I would be like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not being liked by everyone. I'm okay with being misunderstood by everyone. I was never meant to be understood by everybody. I was
Right.
never meant to be liked by everybody. I was never meant to fit in all of the groups. I mean, there's a reason
Right.
why God had different disciples write different books of the Bible, people. You know what I'm saying? And I think we need to
Yes.
learn to be okay with that and not let that be like a reflection of ourselves or who we are or what we believe. I think that we genuinely need to become content with like, you're not everybody's cup of tea and not everybody's going to like you, but
It's okay.
okay.
Yeah, because if we're honest, guess what? Not everybody's our cup of tea either.
No, and that's another thing we have to be okay with. Like, and I talk about this in my book, and confidence is an inside
Yes.
job. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes. I love it.
But I talk about like a few things. When I talk about cancel culture and I talk about how we can have confrontation without canceling someone and that confrontation is actually healthy in the best way. And I think that's one of also the things that nobody taught us how to navigate. You're either a dust
Hmm.
mat or you've totally disconnected from somebody. And
Yeah.
so I think there's healthy confrontations and friendships. And I think that's something that we need to be prepared for. And maybe get prepared for those things with a safe person in a lonely season, whatever that may be, because
Right.
we need to stop waiting for others to protect us and trust that God gave us the ability to protect ourselves. And
Yes.
that takes an ability of trusting ourselves the way he does to be able to make those discerning decisions in
Right.
regards of relationships and friendships because relationships is by far one of the most important things to God. Think about it. Love your God
Yeah.
with all your heart, your mind, and your soul, right?
Hmm.
And then love your
Hmm.
neighbor as you love yourself.
Right.
Learn to love yourself. Learn to trust yourself. And
Right.
then you will have the healthy ability to truly love others and know when to walk away when you're not received. Because even Jesus,
Right.
it did that. And we talk about that and it can be cliche, but like at the same time, there's a reason we keep talking about it. It's
Right.
because it's important. And I think that we should seek relationships, but not from a place of desperation. More so like in the victim mentality, right? Like, but
Yes.
more so like I do need someone and I'm okay that I need them. And I'm
Hmm.
okay with the fact that I want to be seen and I want to be appreciated. I want to be valued. I want to be accepted. We need to be okay with those things about ourselves that God designed naturally, but also have a confidence or discernment in what we're talking about in regarded friendships that is like
Hmm.
I'm so okay with me that I would love for you to be okay with me because I see value in you, but I'm
Hmm.
also okay if you're not. And
Yeah.
I talk about how on social media, it's okay to unfollow someone and not feel the need to find something wrong with them. If that person just subconsciously makes you feel bad about you, it's okay to unfollow them, but you don't have to find something wrong with them because you're unfollowing them. Like that's unhealthy. We don't need to try to belittle someone to make ourselves feel better. Like you could just be like, that person's not for me. They don't bring me value. In this season of my life, they kind of make me feel like poo. And that's a sin that I need to protect myself from, right?
Right.
And you're on Instagram, you're on social media, and I always tell people, I'm like, hey, before I share this, this is an authentic, transparent place. And you're probably not going to agree with everything I show on social media. And I'm okay with that. And I'm very careful also about what I show. But if this causes you to judge me or to fixate yourself on me or what I do, please unfollow me because I'm not going to be the roadblock of your sin and your struggle and your inability to self reflect. Like, unfollow me before you try to understand what's wrong with me. Does that make
Right.
sense?
It does, Ashley, and I think that's so mature because you're right. I've unfollowed people too, not because there was a thing wrong with them. It was because I didn't like where my mind went then when I would see their things and I would perceive there was a
Yeah.
problem on my end. I'm saving myself the going in the negative place. And I'd like to say I'm always strong enough to rise above. And certainly I'm better at it than I used to be, but I'm still human. And sometimes I can, it's just easier to just hit the unfollow. And I'm with you. I boundaries with other people's boundaries because I have a chapter in there called boundaries are our friends, but then also one called boundaries are our friends. And I
I
started to
love that.
struggle. Yeah. I started to struggle a lot less with that concept when I realized boundaries, whether that's social media or in person, is really just about the other person's bandwidth, their resources. And if I fall outside of that bandwidth, then I fall outside of it because there are a whole lot of people, most people, for all of us who fall outside of our own bandwidth. So
And you
it's
know what
not
I
it's
talk
it's not personal often. It's so often not personal. It is just a reality.
Yeah, and it's so funny is that I talk about that in my book, or I'm a Christ-centered confidence coach.
Mhm.
And what you're
Oh,
saying, I actually talk about it in a chapter about comparison. Like, if you think about it, like what you're saying is that the real root of hating on someone or trying to find something wrong with them is because you're subconsciously comparing yourself.
yeah, very true. Very true. And I talk too about, rejection sucks, but don't let it suck you down. And that's what you're doing, and you're kind of almost, it's like a mentality of rejection is the end of things here, so I have to do something to make myself feel better in it. And no, it's like rejection isn't the end of life. It's just the part of life. And again, I get it's really hard. Listen, I have been rejected over and over again by somebody who was not supposed to reject me, like that was their job. So I get the painfulness of it, but but it is, yeah, not something we want to use as a to get a root of bitterness to grow. And so therefore we're acting out of that bitterness to malign and murder somebody's reputation, 6 ways from Sunday. We don't want to do that. So
Yeah, like everything when you talk about certain things, like about friendships or like rejection, or when you were talking about your friend, like that person just like out of nowhere just decided they had an issue.
yeah.
Everything in me is mad, like a righteous anger, because I've always been that way. That's always been my personality, even as a young girl, where it's like if I see someone being purposely left out, I am going to go sit with them. Like even as a
Mm.
little girl, where it's like, I'm going to prove to you, like, we don't care what you think. Hey girl, let me sit with you at lunch. Tell me what you're doing. Like I've always hated mean girls.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, not
Me
the person, but the mean girl mentality. Like, come on. Like, you can't sit there in the same language. And I find it a lot in church. Look, I'm getting fired up and we're running out of time. I'm just going to
it's
say it.
all right. It's all right. I love it.
But like, it makes me irritated, especially in the Christian circles where you're talking about their clicky.
Mhm.
What in the world? How did you lose your way? Where you become so in a
Mhm.
box and so clicky that you forgot what brought you there, why you needed to connect with somebody, and why are you not making the space in the room to connect with others that could be in that same situation? Like, who do you think you are?
I
Like, are
know.
you
Well,
so still unsure with yourself that you actually found identity in the connections with other people rather than your connection with Christ first?
right. Yeah. Well, and that's a good question there. And I've met some people I'd like to ask that too. So within the church
I do
as
ask
well.
him, Kristen.
Well,
You and I can hang
so
out. I'll ask him for you. I'm
all
that
right.
awkward.
Yes. No, I'll do it too. I guess I was thinking that in our church now, I feel like we're in a good place, but we've been in some churches before where, yeah, I thought that as well. But yeah, I know it's such a hard thing, and it's not the Jesus way. I mean, Jesus went out of his way to welcome those that were on the fringes, on the outside. Jesus was on the outside himself, but he was always on the outside. He was not really on the outside looking in. He was on the outside looking up and doing about his father's business. And so that's what I think when we are the new person, we need to, or the established person, I should say, in a church, we ought to always be looking up. What is God asking me to do today? Who is he asking me to talk to? And I'm not just going to beeline to the same people I know and love, but I'm going to also welcome at least one new person that I haven't spoken to or have not spoken often to before today in a meaningful way.
Friendship is so important, Kristen. That's what this book told me. It's vital for our walk.
Yeah. Yeah. It really
It
is.
it
It
really
really
is.
is.
And it's so needed. And it's people, everybody wants a friend. Everybody, like,
Mhm.
if you are honest with yourself, everybody wants a friend, and it's okay to admit that you need one.
Mhm.
And so, Kristen, if you could give anybody one sentence out of this book, out of your heart, of really what you want our audience to hear, what would it be?
I would want it to be, listen, there are lots of things we can do to be a good friend to folks. I think the number one thing we can do to be a good friend to folks is to work on our friendship with Jesus first and foremost. And when we work on our friendship with him, then we are loving others from the overflow of ourselves. We are loving them from a place of relaxed camaraderie, open handed, not tight fisting relationships where, we are then making them not want to be around us because we are just kind of squeezing them to death, metaphorically speaking. So working on our friendship with Jesus though, and learning from him on how he was friends to others and how he loved others, that also makes us a more, like Tim Keller talks about this, it makes us a more attractive person to others and makes it where people want to be our friend then. So I think that's just invaluable. And just thinking about that would be what I want the gal to know too, is that's listening, is, I'm so sorry if you're in a season of loneliness, but do know that you are never lonely. You are with Jesus, and he is your friend. He is the only friend who will never ever fail you. All humans will fail us at one point or another, but Jesus never ever will. And he is with us always.
Amen. I love that. Don't, like, I love how you said, like, when you're on the outside, look up.
Yeah.
When you feel
Yeah.
like you're on the outside, look up. The thing that'll protect you from comparison
Hmm.
is looking up, not
Yes.
looking at the other person in that way. Okay, Kristen, I said it a million times, you're on the gram, but what is your username? When does the book come out? Is the book out yet?
The book released today. Oh, yes. I'm.
And this is your interview with me?
Yes, it is. So thank you, Ashley. Well, I'm honored that you would invite me on. So thank you so much, dear. Thank you so
It's
much.
book launch day. You know what I did on my book launch day? I had an interview with 700 Club. I had to drive to Virginia Beach.
Wow. Well, hey, that's a pretty good place to be, though. Yeah.
Yes, it was a lot. But hi,
So, but
Kristen. You're on book
hello.
launch day. How are you doing?
Well, so far, okay. I mean, we'll see ask me about 6 o'clock tonight, but
Man, I wish I could hug you. This is like, I get it.
so
You're probably
you're
like,
so kind.
this is my sixth time,
No, not at all. It's my third trade book. So you were right in that, there is a number three that's important in there. But yeah, folks can find me. KristenStrong.com is my website, and that my first name is Kristen. And at KristenStrong.com, you can find information on Desperate Woman Seeks Friends. There's a book tab at the top. You can click on Desperate Woman Seeks Friends. And I'm also on Instagram at Kristen Strong as well.
Yeah, you guys go order her book. I'm assuming, Kristen, they can get it anywhere, right?
Yeah, yeah, wherever, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Christian Book, Bookshop, wherever you like to buy books.
Walmart, Target.
Yeah, I think online, yes. I would love to be in the store, but I have not heard that.
Yeah, you'll be in there. I believe this book belongs in a store.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you,
Like a lot,
Ashley.
Kristen. So
Oh, well, make
push.
a way, Lord, make a way.
Push,
So,
push. Like I
I
can
will.
totally see your book. Like I get books from Costco sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, me too. I've done that before.
I could totally see your book in Costco
Oh, that's so kind, Ashley. Well, I'm working hard on
and
my
like
end.
grab it.
Again,
I'm a desperate woman. What?
that's awesome. I love it. Well, listen, I've been desperate more than once, so I get it. It's a real thing. And there's a good quote in the book by she's a writer with New York Magazine's The Cut. Oh, and I cannot remember her name now. Noir Bouzidi, I think is her name. I may be saying it wrong. Forgive me if I am, Noir. But it's she was during COVID trying to make friends, and she has this great quote, which is, I went into that endeavor knowing that a little awkward and desperation were pretty much in the starter dough for making friends. And I was like, yes, that's correct.
Amen.
So
Amen.
so anyway, I thought, well, we agree then. Ashley, what
Thank
a
you so
treat to be
much.
here.
Well, it's a treat to have you on. Love I love doing this. I love speaking to people like you. Like it's my favorite thing to do.
Well, I love talking. You're a great interviewer. Just feels like talking with an actual friend. So I love that. So thank you.
That's what it's supposed to feel like. Look at me. I put my feet up. I have my blankie. I like
I
have my
love it.
coffee.
I love it. I love it.
I
It's like being in your
I feel
home.
like yeah, I feel like those are the best conversations is when we are comfortable with the other person. We're comfortable to share what's on our
Hmm.
hearts and what God has given us. So, yes, thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you guys for listening in, and we will see you next Tuesday. Don't forget to go follow my new friend and go grab her book. It's phenomenal. And I know for sure we're going to be praying for her. I want you guys to continue to pray for her. You leave reviews. You share this episode if it brought you any value. Tag both of us in it because we want to share with you. We want to know what this meant to you and how it related with you. We care about you. We want to be your friend. So,
That's
step
right.
out for
That's right.
us as we step out for you. Yeah. All right, Kristen, thank you so much for
So,
coming on. And I hope you have a great launch day.
thank you, dear. Thank you so much. And you have a great day yourself.
Hey, you guys, if this episode hit home, do me a favor, screenshot it, share it to your stories, and tag me, Ashley Henriot, so I can hype you up. And if you're feeling bold, leave a review. It helps this podcast reach more women who need it. Remember, confidence isn't something we wait for. It's something you build. Keep going, keep growing, and I'll see you next time on Confidence and Coffee right here.